I got a call that no one expects to get. You have cancer. And I was actually in the same room with Steven when I got the call, and I just pretty much turned it on speakerphone and then just checked out.
Entrepreneurship is this path where it's kind of like the most tailored personal growth course you never knew you were enrolling in, and then you're changing so fast.
We have with us today a couple who is a force to be reckoned with. We have Steve Larsen and Marley Jaxx with us today. Steve is known for his track record of successful internet marketing methods, including dramatic demonstrations, a book he's currently co-authoring with Russell Brunson. He specializes in automating as well as doubling the daily lead flow for 7+ figure internet entrepreneurs. Marley is an award-winning filmmaker and globally recognized expert in media production, YouTube growth, and content strategy, and is the go-to consultant in these areas for top industry leaders. They're powerful individuals and a powerful couple as well. Steve and Marley, we are so glad to have you guys with us.
Woo, we rarely get to do interviews alone, so this is really, or together, this is so fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And because that is the case, our goal is to maybe ask you both some questions that you haven't been asked before. I know that both of you have had a lot of success in the digital marketing space individually as well as together. So we want to dive a little bit deeper into how you both work together, the dynamics, and just dive deep into some of the things that I know so many other entrepreneur couples who look up to you would love to know. So that being said, let's just dive into it, shall we?
Yes. All right. So the first thing I want to start off with is, just based on a little bit of what we know about you guys, you were each in past relationships that started prior to you individually becoming an entrepreneur, right? And something that we've heard you mention is that after those relationships ended, that's not what they signed up for. That's not what they signed up for as a partner of you before you were actually an entrepreneur, right? So just having that experience going from being in, past relationships before being an entrepreneur to then now being in a relationship where you're both entrepreneurs, what do you think is required in an entrepreneurial relationship to make it really work well?
Cuddle Muffin, would you like to start here?
Oh, thank you.
Good change the...
That was such a great transition.
There we go. Yeah.
When we first got together, we were so, I would say, hyper vigilant about that because we came from relationships where we felt that our ambition was threatening to our partner. Yeah. That anything that took us away from the relationship, even though in our minds we could see it as like being for the family, it created such tension. So for us entering this relationship together, we were so clear that one of the pillars of our relationship is growth, that we know that we are going to grow. We are going to change. We are going to keep re-meeting each other along the way and keep dating. And we even kind of called it this proverbial weight room. We know that our relationship is one where we can have this, some of you call it a mental volley, that we're growing and kind of bouncing off of each other and growing together, but separate. But you've also talked about, that we were committed to a honeymoon lifestyle, that we're not going to stop dating each other because with so much growth, we need to keep re-meeting each other along the way in the new versions of ourselves that we become.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, we all know entrepreneurship is this path where it's kind of like the most tailored personal growth course you never knew you were enrolling in, and then you're changing so fast. And I know that friends and family who've known us our whole lives, they can kind of see that and it can be a little bit threatening. And sometimes we're blind to it because we don't know how fast the ground is just moving beneath us. So the honeymoon lifestyle, we both we're against the notion that it's a phase, honeymoon phase. It's like, well, it could be just a lifestyle if we choose, but also for who we are and how fast we grow, we're going to continue to change. Like in those pop songs, they complain about how their partner changed. You changed. Well, duh. It's like, I hated diapers, so I got out of them. I changed. It's like, but it's the same thing with business, the same thing with being together.
Yeah.
And what I think has been a cornerstone for us is that not only is there license to change, there's safety in it.
Yeah.
Where you don't come back home at the day and you have to keep your armor on because you changed. I changed, it's like, well, why don't we celebrate that? Let's create a fostering environment for it. And not pressure for either of us to grow, but this absolute license to grow, to try things, to fail. Yeah. And it's meant that we've had to make the home a place of recharge rather than a place of defending the dream, which is kind of what we both came from, with all respect to our past relationships, you know?
Defending the dream. I love that language that you use.
I also love the language of license to grow.
Yeah.
For you guys specifically, one of the rules it sounds like that you've created between you two as an entrepreneur couple is, hey, we have a license to grow. We have the ability and the freedom to decide how we want to grow. And I love that, because when you think about relationships that have quote unquote grown apart, what happens? Usually they grow because we as human beings are constantly evolving and changing and growing, but we end up growing in two different directions, where you both have the freedom to grow as your individual selves while simultaneously growing together as a couple. So because you brought that up, I want to ask, when you look at your relationship, you know, in the past compared to where it is now, what were some of those ginormous or big growth moments for each of you as individuals, as well as how that shows up in your relationship?
Big growth moments. Okay. I knew that, so I pursued Marley pretty hard. And, I mean, come on. So I pursued Marley pretty hard, but one of the things I realized I needed to be okay with was there's a lot of men that are threatened by the fact that they're with a powerful woman. Right. And I know that, and we both know, I mean, Marley's literally going to go get in a TV show she's filming like in a couple months.
Come on.
Right. And so we had to have, and I had this internal stand-up moment myself to be like, I'm fine being with a powerful woman, has no idea. It doesn't diminish my manhood. Right. But that's very normal for, you know, a lot of guys go through that. And as a growth moment, we just talked about it. I really respect that we have language also, that when we don't know how we feel about something, but we need to just call it out so it doesn't fester. We just say it. Hey, it's
I can't name this.
I can't name
we
this.
say this like it feels like there's an energy around us, but we can't name what this tension is. Do you feel that? Do I feel, what is this?
What is let's just explore this together, because I don't know what it is. And then if you don't name it though, our brains are always trying to seek meaning. And so you start closing loops with impure facts.
I did something wrong.
Yeah. And it's like, wait, that's not true. And then it's pretty soon you're designing a storyline that isn't true. And then your brain, the RAS receptors, are literally seeking proof to make it real, you know?
Something that Steven said to me at one point, and we're conscious of our growth and our history and our traumas, the things that we have to unlearn. And you can't let those go until you're aware of them. And so Steven said this thing once about being worried about me seeing him as this like very ambitious, this side of him that in his previous relationship was the problem, threatening.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, bring it on. I want to see that. And I remember saying to you, don't deny me the opportunity to be next to someone that is that inspiring. So instead of holding back and feeling like, oh, I was in trouble, or a previous relationship made me feel like I was wrong for being this kind of person, when you just realize that you're in a different relationship and you're not the same person and you're not with the same person, it's a whole new.
That really meant a lot to me when you said that, because I remember did like a therapy session over this, where like I went and I came to you and I said, hey, look, I'm nervous to be my true nature and true self, because I'm afraid I'll grow so fast again that, you know, we do that and grow apart.
Because you had evidence of it.
Because I had evidence of it, but then, you know, I made it a truth and it wasn't a truth. Yeah. And you said, don't deny me the opportunity to love you in your growth.
Yeah.
And I was like, speaking to my soul. I mean, that was like really, really powerful for me to hear, where it's like, of course I can't wait to meet the 6 months from you version. Yeah. 6 months from now version of you.
Yeah.
And keep dating, keep growing. And there's that fear that, it means we're going to grow apart. We're going to grow separately and we're going to go away from each other. But that's not true, because I'm going to grow too. So we're both going to grow. And that doesn't have to be a precedent that you grow apart.
You don't have to plan for this like unnecessary or unreal catastrophe.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. You guys are a testimony essentially as to what it looks like to grow individually as well as to grow as a couple. And I think that the successes that you've had are a perfect example of that. Speaking of the successes that you've had, I know that both of you in the digital marketing space individually have had a lot of success just on your own. but you've also done some really cool projects together as well. So I'm curious, for the couples that are listening to this that have to navigate figuring out how to market themselves as a couple, where you have to divvy up roles and figure out how to blend your voices together, I'm curious to know if you guys would have any advice for couples who want to market themselves together.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah. I got a thought on this, which is that I think that there's a danger in believing that we're the product. You know what I mean? When you build a business, it's a lot of pressure, and then it can be weird. It's like, so like the business has a product and you're marketing the product, and if you want to be the attractive characters together, that's great. I think it gets a little weird though. And I think we've all can think of situations where it's like this person in the couple is being a strong, attractive character and this person, and that can get weird. Right. And so, to just remember that we are not the product is the product, and we are not the business, and to design marketing machines that don't rely on a face, although we'll use our faces to amp up lead flow at the beginning.
Yeah, our podcast that will be coming out in September is called Rare Things, and we recorded some of the first few episodes, and we were very clear that we're not saying that we are like, hey, look at us, we're rare. Although we to ourselves, we believe that, and we love that about ourselves, that we feel like we have a rare relationship. But it's meant to be a movement for other people as well, a community of people that live life in a rare way and believe rare perspectives, so that the movement goes beyond just look at this person on a pedestal on a stage. It's not meant to be about us. It's meant to be about a cause, a mission, a movement, or a product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it's good to create, a mission together, and realize that we each have different strengths, and it's not to mean just because one of us has a strength doesn't mean the other is weak at it, But in business, you are paid. The market pays you for your strengths. And so there's things that Marley just crushes at that, frankly, I'm not very good at. And I think that there needs to be a period, especially if you're going to be in business with your significant other, there needs to be a discovery phase at the beginning where you really don't know who's good at what, right? And you might know from the beginning, but when you get actually into the weeds of it, be very open with like, hey, look, I hate doing that. Or being able to have a conversation together and be like, I know you like doing this, but you suck at it, or whatever, just to be able to talk about it so that there's safety, so that, I like the book, 7 Habits of High Effective People. He says that all conflict stems from a misunderstanding in roles and goals. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't have those very clear roles, who does what, we both do it. Like, do you? Right? Because you really should come down to a single set of eyes, right? And divide those roles out. I found that that's really helpful.
I would imagine that there are some strengths that kind of overlap. Yeah. You both are good at marketing. You both have the ability to get the word out and do so in a profitable way. So I guess if we can go a little bit deeper into that, when you guys find yourselves in a position where you have overlap strengths, where you both are good at marketing, how do you then divvy up the roles when you both are good at something and not both of you want to do it at the same time? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
So to me, I can look back at the first few hires that I ever made in my business and clearly see why they were a mistake, where I hired a person instead of a role.
We all have at some point.
I hired buddies, and then I was like, let's find a place for you, instead of like actually designing a role and hiring for the role. So we might have overlapping strengths, but the business needs one person to be doing the role. And so, you know what I'm saying? So just being able to step back and go, well, hey, we made this role have these responsibilities in there, and your name's not on it. So I'm going to take this ball 80% across it. If you want to spot check, awesome. And just being able to know that we're serving the business role, not competing for, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that it's also, you talk about business being a game of personal development. Now imagine doing it in a relationship, that then what does it bring up for how we can communicate better and how we resolve conflicts better? Like for me, I was terrified of conflict resolution to the point that I would just suppress. I'd just be like, it's okay. I don't have to get my way out. I don't need to communicate it. I don't even communicate what I want, because I had this belief that I had no idea that I had until having a safe place to let it out, that I was afraid, or I felt that I wasn't allowed to be mad, because as a child, somewhere I was told, don't be mad and just let go of what you want so that you don't ruffle any feathers, and just that's for the greater good. Well, in a relationship, that sounds like the ingredients to resentment. And I mean, Gottman Institute talks about like that is one of the, if there is resentment in a relationship, it is a matter of time. Like that, time not. But if you can have a safe place to communicate that, and we all want the same thing. You talk about roles and goals. We want to have a lifestyle that we love. We want to make money in a business that we enjoy. If you can have a safe place to communicate it and then be like, oh, those are your strengths, these are my strengths, divvy it up.
Yeah. And realize that the business isn't the relationship. Right? Totally different things. And if the business is the only platform where we get to work on a relationship, that's I also feel like the beginning of the end. Like it's a matter of time.
100%. I'm so glad you brought that up too, because I think so many couples in our community, they do run into conflict, so to speak, when maybe one of them doesn't feel necessarily safe to express what they want or be themselves, especially in the context of business. But I love, Steve, what you said, because if business is the only environment where that growth in the relationship is happening, then we're kind of approaching it backwards. Whereas I think you both would agree that when you work on yourselves first and then you work on your relationship, all of the personal growth that you're experiencing personally and relationally, that shows up in the business, right? Yeah. Instead of it being a 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1, essentially you are representing one whole person plus one whole person equaling 3. Yeah. Yeah. At least that's how I look at it. Yeah. Personally. Now, speaking of, some of the personal side of things, Marley, I know that you have been so courageously vocal about some of the health crisis that you've experienced. And I know also, because of that bravery that you had and that courage to share what you've gone through, your story has inspired so many people. And what I would love to bring into the conversation today is asking how, when you went through that time, how you as a couple also simultaneously leaned on each other and supported each other through that time.
Yeah. Well, it was a crazy time, because it was like 2 days before Christmas. And we were also, right after Christmas, launching a brand new business that I got a call that no one expects to get. You have cancer. And I was actually in the same room with Steven when I got the call. And I just pretty much turned it on speakerphone and then just checked out. And that whole time is kind of foggy for me. I think it's just my brain kind of protecting me from the trauma that I experienced at that time. But what I do know for sure is that Steven helped me to see through that fog and to get clarity on what direction I was meant to go, because what I was told at that time was, you need to have a hysterectomy. This is a ticking time bomb. You got to get this out. And then I started to, as an entrepreneur does, and someone with our kind of brain and lifestyle, look into what are the alternatives, because we're not really the kind of people that just do exactly what we're told to do. And I started asking Steven, am I like fighting the wrong fight here by just doing what they tell me to do and having this surgery? And Steven, being just so amazing and supportive, and the kind of perspectives that we have and how we want to live our life, was like, whatever you decide, I'm so with you. And we kind of researched everything together. We went down many rabbit holes, way past the first page of Google, and it became kind of just this obsession for a while of like investigating and finding the right path for us. And I'm really proud of how we navigated that, even though for some time it was just an emotional hurricane. Because one of the things for me is I was on birth control for 16 years, which I really believe contributed to me getting a cervical cancer diagnosis. And then to get off of 16 years of birth control, artificial hormones in my body, it was crazy emotional. And when you hear the line of like, in sickness and in health, you put in your time. But like, you are so amazing with the ups and downs of my emotions that I like just could not even comprehend or understand what I was going through.
I mean, it was a while. It was probably when 3 to 6 months, something like that. I mean, it's a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that also, I think it's important for just, our brains just want meaning 24/7, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're just constantly seeking meaning. And I think it's hard when you put that on your partner where it's like, well, what's the answer? Well, the answer didn't come for 6 months. I mean, really, and so there has to be a strength that is besides, if you're not strong enough in your own self to have an open loop and a question that relates to your relationship or something in business or whatever it is in life, then you can kind of seek an answer that is an answer, but is the wrong answer just because you're seeking one. And then now you're off on that path or on that path or on that path, and so I feel like growth requires a 6-month period where you're going to go in and you don't really know what's going to happen. It's kind of scary. You really get to assess how strong the relationship is, and learn, hey, we could fix stuff here. Or, I'm thinking of a hammer. We could fix stuff here. We could do stuff here, or just be there for each other in that way. Not that makes sense what I'm saying, but it's just being able. I think it was Socrates, Aristotle, one of those guys who was like
those Greek geniuses.
Yeah, there's a line is like, it's the mark of an educated mind to entertain new thought without accepting it. Mm-hmm. And so there's this gap where you don't get to have the emotional rush of an answer, and it's just a question. And I
lived in a question mark for a long
time, right? And I think that's what's really cool. And then allow, though, for like natural emotion to bubble up, like, hey, this was tough. Let's talk about it. Don't let it fester, right? And just that cycle over and over, I feel like is a basis of all healthy relationship.
And what great evidence to know that like we've gone through that. If we've gone through that, we can go through, like we're armed to face other challenges in life together. And we had a therapist very early on in our relationship that we saw. We were both going to the same therapist. So that's kind of a way that we started dating, that we'd trade notes. How was your therapy session? How's yours? But this therapist, something we learned from them, the divorce rates is like 50%, but then in second marriages, the divorce rate is like 70%, especially if you remarry within the first 2 years of your divorce, often because in that time frame, people haven't done the healing and they kind of just marry the same situation in a different human. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he said was that it's really important in dating that you see each other through all seasons, meaning a year, all seasons of weather, but also seasons of life. So we've seen each other through sickness, health, rich, poor, grief, happiness,
everything really.
We've seen, and I think, and that's something that we share with our kids a lot. And it's cute how we'll talk to the kids about like, we will tell them that we're the most in love people in the world. Yeah. You'll never meet people that are more in love with that than us. And when you marry someone, I hope that he's just like your dad.
I think it's really cool too, though. In there, he said the thing that you'll know that will make you have a successful relationship is the ability to admit that you both have baggage and the safety and determination to work on it.
You're willing to do anything it takes to work on that.
It's awesome.
What a great framework for any relationship, because now looking back on, even men that I dated throughout my 20s, we didn't have that. Yeah. Well, I couldn't admit that I had baggage. I didn't even know what that meant. I felt that was like a wrong thing to have baggage. We all do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you guys are an inspiration to so many other couples of what it looks like to persevere and to support one another as you go through these challenges. So we just want to thank you guys for being just role models, that you don't have to choose between having a successful business or a successful relationship. Yeah. You can have both. So we really appreciate you guys being here today. And for everybody watching, let this be a reminder of what is possible for you and your relationship and your business as well.
Yeah. So the last thing we want to ask you guys is, if people want to find you, connect with you, hear more about your story, where can they connect with you online?
Yeah, look us up, Marley Jaxx.
SteveJLarsen.com. Yeah.
And let's go to our podcast, Rare Things, coming out soon.
Yeah.
We're so pumped for that.
You said September?
September, yes. We were going to launch it sooner, but then they were like, no, it's not. Summer isn't really prime podcast listening months, so makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So for everybody listening, we will definitely put the link to get a hold of Marley and Steve in the show notes. And we will absolutely keep everybody posted for when that podcast released. So Marley and Steve, thank you guys so much. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.